Hello, esteemed gentlemen. The smartest move is the one your enemy never sees coming. And sometimes, that move is simply walking past them while they're still busy plotting your downfall over a cup of cheap coffee. Let's be brutally honest. In a world where most people fight loud and lose fast, Sigma males play a different game. They don't just defeat their enemies, they confuse them, blindside them, leave them standing in the rain wondering, wait, did I just lose? Or am I still playing? Psychological studies show that unpredictable behavior activates more stress in your opponent's brain than actual threats, meaning confusion breaks people faster than conflict. And Sigma males? They've mastered this art like it's their native language. Today we're diving into the genius ways Sigma males outsmart and mentally paralyze their enemies. Not with muscles, not with loud speeches, but with precision, silence, and moves so smooth they look accidental until it's too late. So buckle up, because by the time this ends, you might start wondering, what if someone's been playing me like this all along? And don't worry, if that thought hurt, it's supposed to. Let's begin. Number 1. They redefine winning in the middle of the game. Most people play by the rules they were taught. They spend their entire lives trying to win games someone else invented. Whether it's social approval, workplace competition, or personal rivalries, they measure success by standards they never questioned. But Sigma males, they tear that entire framework apart. They don't just win the game, they change what winning means halfway through the battle, and that's where their real power lies. An enemy could spend weeks, months, or even years preparing for a battle they think they understand. They gather weapons, form alliances, build strategies, all based on what they think the Sigma male wants. But halfway through, the Sigma flips the script. What looked like a race to the top suddenly becomes a race no one wanted to run. What seemed like a battle for dominance suddenly becomes irrelevant. The Sigma's goals were never what the enemy thought. While the enemy was busy chasing trophies, the Sigma was redesigning the entire playing field. And now, the enemy's victories mean nothing. It's not about being unpredictable for the sake of chaos. It's about making the enemy realize too late that they've been operating under the wrong definition of success. That kind of mental twist is more devastating than defeat. It makes a person question why they were fighting in the first place. It drains their motivation, crushes their sense of direction, and leaves them standing alone in a battlefield that no longer matters. Most people are wired to win arguments, get recognition, or prove others wrong. Sigma males couldn't care less about those shallow wins. They measure success in freedom, peace, and the ability to walk away while everyone else is still fighting shadows. Their enemies try to trap them in ego battles, but the Sigma walks through the exit nobody else noticed, leaving them swinging at thin air. That's why people hate losing to a Sigma. It's not just that they lost, it's that they realized too late they were playing the wrong game all along. And by then, the Sigma is gone, leaving only confusion and silence in his wake. Number 2. They bury their genius in simplicity. Sigma males understand one brutal truth about human nature. People rarely question what looks simple. In a world obsessed with complexity, they deliberately strip their moves down to something that looks almost too basic to be dangerous. They don't need fancy words, over-explained strategies, or dramatic displays of intellect. Instead, they drop quiet statements, make humble suggestions, or take actions that seem so ordinary no one sees the razor blade beneath them. This simplicity disarms people. Enemies expect brilliance to come wrapped in arrogance, technical jargon, or theatrical genius. They wait for some grand reveal. But when Sigma males speak, it feels effortless, almost innocent. People relax their guard. They stop paying attention. And that's exactly when the real play unfolds. While others are busy trying to sound impressive, Sigma males are 10 steps ahead, slipping their strategy into conversations like it's nothing special. By the time their enemies realize there was a plan all along, it's too late to stop it. They can't trace where things went wrong because the genius was hidden in what seemed harmless, casual, and forgettable. This is why many underestimate the Sigma male. He doesn't show off his mental weapons. He doesn't warn people how smart he is. He lets them think he's just some quiet guy doing his own thing. And in that underestimation, his enemies fall asleep at the wheel. They don't prepare for an attack because they don't think one is coming. They don't strategize against him because they think he's harmless. But the truth is, Sigma males know that brilliance doesn't need a spotlight. The most lethal tactics are the ones no one recognizes until after they've already worked. Simplicity becomes their camouflage, and that camouflage, it's deadly, because the world always underestimates what doesn't scream for attention. And in that silence, the Sigma male strikes without warning and without mercy. Number 3, they never fight on the expected battlefield. Most people prepare for battles in the places they feel strongest. Loud arguments, public confrontations, or power struggles where everything is visible and obvious. That's where egos clash, where people feel comfortable showing their strength. But Sigma males don't bother stepping onto those stages. They know that fighting where the enemy is prepared is a waste of energy. So instead, they drag the conflict into places their enemies never trained for. If someone expects a debate, the Sigma doesn't argue. He disarms them with silence. If they expect public humiliation, he responds in private, where no one is watching, and where the humiliation cuts deeper. If they expect aggression, he gives them calmness so unsettling it feels like an attack by itself. He fights mentally when they were preparing physically. He strikes socially when they were preparing emotionally. He shifts the entire battlefield to his advantage, and suddenly the enemy realizes they have no armor for this kind of war. This is where most people break. They're used to playing in predictable arenas where they can flex their usual strengths. Take them outside of that comfort zone, and they crumble. The Sigma male thrives in these off-script spaces. Emotional manipulation, silent resistance, reverse psychology, strategic withdrawal, these are his battlefields. And because most people never even recognize these as places where battles happen, they lose without realizing it. What makes this tactic brutal is that the enemy feels powerless without understanding why. They can't find the battlefield, let alone win the fight. It's like preparing for a sword fight and realizing too late that you're drowning instead. And while they're struggling to breathe in this unfamiliar space, the Sigma male has already won, without raising his voice, throwing a punch, or even breaking a sweat. This is why Sigma males confuse and frustrate their enemies so much. They don't fight harder, they fight smarter, and they fight where the enemy is blind, weak, and alone. Number 4. They master the art of delayed revenge that looks like coincidence. Sigma males understand that revenge fueled by emotion is sloppy, obvious, and self-destructive. That's why they never retaliate in the heat of the moment. Instead, they step back, detach completely, and watch. They let time do the heavy lifting. Their enemies often think they've escaped judgment, believing the Sigma male has either forgotten the offense or was too weak to respond. But that's the first mistake. Assuming silence equals surrender. What the Sigma is really doing is calculating. He watches his enemies' habits, weaknesses, and blind spots. He waits until life looks stable for them, until their defenses are down and they feel untouchable. Then, with surgical precision, he delivers a consequence so subtle, so perfectly timed, that it doesn't even look like retaliation. It looks like an accident, bad timing, or simply the universe balancing the scales. Sometimes, the Sigma male doesn't even need to lift a finger directly. He plants a seed that grows over time, introducing a problem into his enemy's world that unfolds slowly, causing frustration, failure, or embarrassment far down the road. By the time the damage shows itself, no one connects it back to him, and that's exactly how he wants it. This kind of revenge is terrifying because it's invisible. People can defend against open attacks. But how do you defend against something that looks like fate? Against a misfortune that feels like bad luck? The Sigma male uses life itself as his accomplice, hiding his hand so well that his enemy spends more time blaming circumstances than tracing the source of their downfall. And in the rare case that the enemy suspects something, it's already too late. The Sigma has already moved on, detached from the outcome, while the other person is left obsessed with figuring out where it all went wrong. This is why Sigma revenge is not explosive, it's corrosive, quiet, patient, and devastating. A reminder that the deadliest strikes are the ones you never see coming, and by the time you feel them, the one who struck you is already gone. Number 5. They make their weaknesses look like a trap. Most people hide their weaknesses, terrified that someone will exploit them. Sigma males take the opposite approach. They reveal certain flaws on purpose, not because they're careless, but because they know exactly what they're doing. They use those apparent vulnerabilities like bait, setting a psychological trap that lures their enemies into a false sense of superiority. It works like this. An enemy sees what they think is a weak spot. Maybe it's an area where the Sigma seems inexperienced, disconnected, or emotionally vulnerable. The enemy sharpens their knives, believing they've found the perfect opening. But what they don't realize is that the Sigma has already reinforced that area behind the scenes. What looks like an open door is actually a dead end. By the time the enemy steps in, they're trapped, outmaneuvered, and exposed. This tactic is brutally effective because people love to feel smart when they discover something hidden. Sigma males let their enemies feel that rush of false confidence. They let them believe they've spotted a crack in the armor, but the whole time, the Sigma male is in control of what they see and how they interpret it. It's mental misdirection at its finest, and sometimes Sigma males will even play dumb in conversations, pretend to overlook details, or act like they're emotionally reactive just to let their enemies build a plan around those false assumptions. But when the enemy finally makes their move, they find that what they attacked wasn't weak at all. It was bait. This destroys an enemy's confidence because it flips the whole dynamic. The thing they thought gave them the advantage actually exposed their true intentions. And once the Sigma sees how they strike, it's game over. Now he knows their tactics, their mindset, and their emotional weak spots. By using their own flaws as camouflage, Sigma males don't just protect themselves, they learn about their enemies without lifting a finger. And in the end, the enemy realizes too late. The battle was never on their terms. They were playing straight into the Sigma's hands from the very start. Number 6. They use questions to disarm, not arguments to attack. Sigma males don't waste energy on loud arguments. They know debates are just ego battles where both sides talk past each other, trying to win an audience, not the truth. Instead, Sigmas use something far more dangerous: sharp, quiet questions. Questions that slip past the ego, slide into the cracks of a person's beliefs, and force them to face their own contradictions. While most people try to overpower an enemy's argument with counterpoints, Sigma males go straight for the foundation. They ask calm, focused questions that make the enemy explain themselves, and in doing so expose the holes in their own thinking. No insults, no shouting, just a surgical dismantling of false confidence. It's unnerving because the enemy was prepared for a fight, not an interrogation. They expected resistance, not curiosity, and that shift in dynamic throws them off balance. They start second-guessing their own words, trying to patch up their logic in real time, but the more they explain, the weaker their position becomes. Sigma males use this confusion to sit back, observe, and let the enemy self-destruct. This tactic works because people rarely examine why they believe what they believe. They build their arguments on assumptions, emotions, and borrowed opinions. Sigma males don't attack those arguments head-on. They make people confront their own blind spots. A single, well-placed question can unravel an entire worldview faster than 1,000 counter-arguments. Even worse for the enemy, Sigma males don't argue to be right. They question to reveal what's wrong. There's no emotional attachment, no need for validation, just calm, methodical clarity. And that's terrifying to people who rely on noise and emotion to dominate others. By the end of the exchange, the enemy often feels exposed, defensive, and alone in their thoughts. What they thought was going to be a verbal war turned into them fighting against themselves, with the Sigma male simply watching, waiting, and quietly winning without ever raising his voice. Number 7. They imitate the enemy's thought process, then break it. Sigma males don't just observe their enemies, they step inside their minds. They study how their opponents think, how they react under pressure, what motivates them, and most importantly, where their mental blind spots are. Instead of confronting them directly, Sigma males mirror their thought patterns so precisely that they can predict what their enemies will do next. It's like playing chess, where you already know your opponent's next 5 moves because you've memorized how they think the game works. But here's where it gets brutal. Once the Sigma has mapped out the enemy's mind, he doesn't just predict their moves, he disrupts them from the inside. He introduces contradictions, unexpected outcomes, or decisions that force the enemy to question their own reasoning. Suddenly, what made sense to them yesterday no longer adds up today. And because the enemy was so sure of their own logic, this collapse hits hard. It's like pulling the rug out from under someone's mind. This tactic works because most people operate on autopilot. They repeat the same strategies, emotional reactions, and decision-making habits without realizing it. Sigma males watch for these loops. Then they build a scenario that follows the enemy's expected script, until one moment when it doesn't. That tiny fracture in predictability makes the enemy freeze. Now they're trapped between what they thought would happen and what is actually happening. It's a mental ambush. The enemy's brain was prepared for one reality, but the Sigma quietly rewrote the script behind the scenes. And because the enemy doesn't understand how it happened, they start doubting themselves. That doubt spreads like a virus, infecting their confidence, their plans, and eventually their entire approach to the conflict. Sigma males don't need to overpower people when they can dismantle their entire thought process. By the time the enemy tries to adjust, the Sigma is already gone, 2 steps ahead, leaving them stuck in a mental maze of their own making. And that's the true power, winning a battle before your opponent even realizes they're in one. Number 8. They stay forgettable until it's time to be unforgettable. Sigma males understand something most people's egos won't allow. Staying unnoticed is a power move. While others scramble for attention, trying to be the loudest voice in the room, Sigmas intentionally blend into the background. They know that when you're invisible, people speak freely around you. They reveal their weaknesses, plans, and blind spots because they don't see you as a threat. And that's exactly where Sigma males want to be. Off the radar, watching everything unfold without having to lift a finger. They aren't driven by the need to impress anyone in the moment. While their enemies burn energy proving their worth, Sigmas remain quiet observers, collecting data, studying patterns, and waiting for the perfect moment to act. No wasted words, no unnecessary moves, just pure, silent calculation. But here's the brilliance. When they finally do strike, it's so unexpected that people freeze. The quiet guy who was supposedly just there turns out to be the one holding the entire playbook. His move is so precise, so effective, that it feels like it came out of nowhere. And that shock? It paralyzes people far more than a predictable attack ever could. This ability to be forgettable until it matters makes their impact unforgettable. People replay the moment in their heads, wondering how they missed the signs. They question their judgment, their awareness, their instincts. And that psychological ripple lasts long after the Sigma male has walked away. It's not about hiding out of fear. It's about knowing when presence is power and when absence is strategy. Sigma males control when people notice them. They flip the switch on visibility only when it serves a purpose, never for validation, never for show. And the result? They build a reputation not as the loudest in the room, but as the one person no one saw coming, and no one can forget after. Number 9. They infect their enemies with overthinking. Sigma males know that the human mind is its own worst enemy. Instead of wasting energy attacking someone head-on, they plant quiet, almost invisible doubts that grow inside their enemies' heads like weeds. They don't need to yell, threaten, or dominate. They just drop a single thought, a subtle comment, or a carefully timed question, and then walk away. And that tiny seed starts to spread like wildfire. Their enemies begin second-guessing everything. Every decision, every motive, every move they make suddenly feels uncertain. Was that meeting really a coincidence? Did that person actually mean what they said? Is this strategy going to work, or is it already falling apart? The enemy starts playing mental chess against a ghost, and the Sigma male, he's long gone, quietly watching the chaos unfold from a distance. This is overthinking at its most dangerous level because the enemy thinks they're being cautious and smart when really they're paralyzing themselves. They lose time, clarity, and confidence. Decisions that should have taken seconds now take hours. Simple plans turn into tangled webs of doubt and hesitation. And, while they're busy, trapped in their own head, the Sigma male keeps moving forward, undetected and unstoppable. What makes this tactic brilliant is that the Sigma doesn't have to fight at all. He lets his enemy collapse under the weight of their own thoughts. It's psychological judo, using the enemy's own mental energy against them until they trip over themselves. And since the Sigma never directly attacked, the enemy can't even point fingers. There's no clear confrontation, no obvious battle to blame, just a slow internal breakdown that no one else can see. People who rely on control and confidence are the easiest targets for this. Take away their certainty, and you've taken away their power. Sigma males don't destroy their enemies, they make them destroy themselves. And by the time the enemy realizes they've been played, they're already too deep in their own mental trap to climb out. Number 10. They exploit social rules their enemies are trapped by. Most people are trapped by invisible rules they don't even realize they're following. Social expectations, polite behavior, fear of judgment, these are the invisible chains that control how most people act in public and private life. Enemies often assume that everyone plays by these same rules, but Sigma males? They don't. They walk outside the social contract entirely, and that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. Sigma males don't break the rules recklessly. They simply refuse to be limited by them when those rules serve no real purpose. While their enemies are busy playing nice, worrying about appearances or waiting for permission, Sigmas move freely and decisively. They do what's effective, not what's expected. They'll walk away from a fake friendship without explanation. They'll cut off a manipulative boss without a dramatic confrontation. They'll make a strategic move others avoid simply because it's not what people do. And here's where it gets brutal. Enemies often won't follow them into that space because they're still trapped by the fear of looking bad, being judged, or breaking some unspoken social code. Sigmas don't care. They know most people are too scared of being the villain, even when doing what's right for themselves. Sigma males accept being misunderstood. They accept being called cold or ruthless. Why? Because results matter more than approval. This terrifies their enemies. It's like trying to play chess with someone who suddenly switches the game to poker and still wins. The enemy keeps waiting for the Sigma to follow the usual script, argue politely, compromise, or explain themselves. But the Sigma never does. Instead, he acts in ways the enemy would never even consider, creating outcomes that no one else saw coming. Sigma males aren't reckless rebels, they're strategic outsiders. They obey their own internal code, not society's fragile playbook. And that's the deadliest part. When someone stops playing by the rules you're trapped inside, there's almost no way to win. You're stuck following a script while they've already flipped to the next chapter. Number 11. They weaponize inner peace in a world addicted to chaos. In a world where people react instantly to everything, criticism, insults, power plays, Sigma males do something most can't comprehend. They stay calm. Not the fake, forced calm that people use to appear strong, but a real, grounded stillness that can't be shaken. And in a world addicted to chaos, that calm becomes a weapon. Enemies expect emotional reactions. They expect anger, defensiveness, or fear. They're used to controlling people by triggering their emotions, making them act irrationally. But when a Sigma male refuses to react, when he meets their chaos with silence, the enemy's whole plan collapses. Suddenly they're not just fighting the Sigma, they're fighting their own frustration. They keep poking, keep provoking, waiting for the explosion that never comes. And the longer the Sigma stays still, the more unhinged the enemy becomes. It's psychological warfare because calmness, when used correctly, feels like a mirror. It reflects the enemy's chaos back at them. They start hearing their own noise more clearly. Their aggression looks desperate in comparison. Their manipulation loses its power when it doesn't move the person it was meant to control. This kind of stillness is uncomfortable because it forces the enemy to face their own emotional instability. People who thrive on control hate this. They realize they can't pull the Sigma into their storm. And in that moment, they lose the power dynamic. The Sigma isn't reacting to them. He's watching them unravel in front of him. And the most brutal part? Sigma males don't do this as a tactic. They do it because they've already conquered their own inner chaos. Their peace is real. That's what makes it impossible to fake and impossible to fight. While others are screaming to be heard or scrambling to win, the Sigma male stands silent, calm, and unaffected. In the end, the enemy often walks away, feeling like they lost a battle they never even saw. Because when someone refuses to play your emotional game, you realize too late. You never had control in the first place. Number 12. They let their enemies think they've won. Too soon. Sigma males understand one brutal truth about human nature. Most people stop being careful the moment they think they've won. That's why Sigmas sometimes let their enemies taste victory, early, easy, and sweet. They step back, let the enemy believe they've conquered the situation, and watch as their opponent celebrates too soon. But underneath that fake defeat, the real game is still unfolding. Most enemies are so hungry for recognition, so desperate to feel powerful, that they rush to declare victory before the battle is actually over. They start relaxing their guard, revealing their next moves, exposing their weaknesses. They post about their win, talk too much, or simply stop watching their back. And in that moment of overconfidence, the Sigma strikes. He doesn't fight for applause, so he has no problem letting someone else feel like they've won temporarily. His ego isn't bruised by a momentary loss because he's always looking at the long game. While the enemy is celebrating, the Sigma is setting the next trap. And by the time the enemy realizes they were only halfway through the war, it's too late. Their energy is drained, their strategy is spent, and their guard is down. This tactic is devastating because it plays on the enemy's impatience and arrogance. People who need constant validation can't sit in quiet victory. They rush to show the world they've conquered something. They want the credit before the work is done. Sigma males let them have that moment because they know it's a setup. The real power comes in the aftermath, when the enemy has no defense left and thinks the conflict is already over. By striking after the supposed victory, the Sigma takes not only the win, but also the enemy's confidence. And that hurts more than losing in the heat of battle. It makes them question their instincts, their timing, and their own intelligence. Sigma males don't rush to win. They wait for their enemies to lose themselves. And when that moment comes, the fall is twice as hard because it started with them thinking they were already on top. In the end, Sigma males don't win by force, noise, or ego. They win by seeing what others miss, by reshaping the entire battlefield while their enemies are still sharpening their swords. They don't crave the spotlight because their true victories happen in the shadows, where silence speaks louder than words and strategy outlasts aggression. While their enemies scramble for applause, Sigma males leave behind confusion, doubt, and self-destruction. They don't destroy people's bodies. They dismantle their certainty. Every move they make is a psychological ambush, leaving enemies trapped in their own arrogance, battling ghosts that aren't even there. This is why Sigma males remain underestimated until it's far too late. They're not trying to prove anything. They're mastering the game itself. And by the time others realize the rules have changed, the Sigma has already walked away with what really mattered: freedom, clarity, and power that doesn't need permission. So ask yourself, are you playing someone else's game or quietly building your own? If you found value in this and want more brutally honest, rare insights you won't hear anywhere else, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. Don't forget to hit the like button if this opened your mind, and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you know someone who's still trapped playing the wrong game, share this video with them. Let's keep building a tribe of thinkers, not followers. Stay sharp, stay free. See you in the next one.